Rajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Jiayanu, Pacheraagale, Ni Hao, Chunashume, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimes, Gutamogan, Ola, Boyo, Privyat, Kaifahal, Haleshuma Chatore, Ahlan Vasal Marhaba, Buna, Mucho Gracias, Swabi of Bali Kareaya, Hoj Galden and Ayosayo, Huyamora, Chivato, Chihaljot, Kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into BTV World and are watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, since it's a Monday, it's the start of the week, the only thing which I would want to ask my very hardworking colleague today is, how are you feeling? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me. Jazakallah khair. Since it's Monday, and I think Monday does give us some sort of dread because it's the start of the week. But I guess obviously this is the life, and it has to go on. But one thing is for certain, Shahzad, and I am seeing that there is this paradigm shift, especially when it comes to millennials dealing with their work routine, which is that they're asking for more off days. And then this trend has been going on, especially in the West, because there are 3 days they are off and 4 days they are working, and they want to increase the productivity and also want to retain the workforce, because obviously young people, they are shrinking there, but in Pakistan it's the opposite, because we have a boom of young people. 60% of the population is young.
We certainly do not believe in family planning or anything.
Right.
But in addition to that, where you mentioned, so it was obviously Sweden, which came up with this idea that, okay, we'll have a 4-day working week, but there are 2 factors to it. So imagine, so millennials over here might not even want to work quite a lot. They certainly are okay. They're procrastinating these days. The generation is different. But what we really do kind of put under consideration is that Sweden happens to be on #1 in the happiness index. Number 2, they have a great GDP, so I think they can afford to do that.
I mean, these happiness indexes, I do have a problem with that, and I would like to deconstruct how they calculate happiness in the first place, because one of my friend went to Sweden and she said that she had a really hard time acclimatizing with that entire country, and a lot of things, very good things that we hear about Sweden as a welfare state, they are not very nuanced approach, because there is a lot more going on there.
Recently,
and, yes. And she had to take those depression pills or happiness pills or whatever to come out from that. But
are there any happiness pills, man?
Yes,
come on.
Yes, there are. She has to come out from that. But again, obviously, every country is different. Every country's environment is different. The geography is different. Territory is different. And the surrounding factors are very much different, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, we do praise Sweden a lot, but I think there are lots of other factors that we skip, because dur ke dhol hamesha suhane hi hote hain, right?
Thank you so much for saying that, and I kind of partially do agree to that, because obviously people from different walk of life will have a very different thought process. Not just that, they will have a very own perception of their culture and whatnot.
True.
But in addition to this, I believe that happiness really needs to come from within. And that's one thing which I realized when I was somewhat around 25 to 26 years old, and the reason was that most of the time happiness is what we are looking from others. That's not how it is. Happiness comes from within, and the #1 rule for you to be happy is that you do not expect from anyone other than Allah Almighty. That's it. And you really need to, hold that rope tight. Make sure that you're faithful. Make sure that you pray to Allah Almighty. Make sure that you have a heart which is full of gratitude. And ladies and gentlemen, you will see how happy you are.
That's very true, and thank you so much for reiterating this message early in the morning, because we have talked about it, and we have talked about how the contentment of the heart lies in the remembrance of God, or the zikr of God, right? And that gives us the ultimate happiness, pleasure, contentment, whatever you like to, satisfaction, whatever you like to roll it out.
And this is how it is. Dilon ka sukoon Allah ke zikr mein.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much for saying it out in the Urdu too. So now let's move on to our top stories, which is the cricket is dominating because it's the cricket season, right? So Pakistan women team defeated South Africa women by 7 wickets in the second T20 International in Karachi to take the unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match series. Batting first, South Africa women scored 150 runs for the loss of 3 wickets in allotted 20 overs. In reply, Pakistan women achieved 151 target for the loss of 3 wickets in 19.1 overs.
Wow.
It's not just the women cricket team that is doing some marvelous job. I think the Pakistan cricket team is also doing a marvelous job. And especially Pakistan came highest ranking in the ODI,
Exactly.
right?
So we are at number 1 in ODI. This is the match summary right in front of you. Yes, obviously South Africa 150 for the loss of 3 wickets, which Pakistan women were able to achieve in 19.1 overs for the loss of 3 wickets. Wonderful performances. And further on, we'll certainly be talking about it on PTV Sports somewhat around 12:30. So please make sure to tune in. Today on Asia Cup, it's going to be India versus Nepal in Palakele. So please make sure that you tune in.
Which is the favorite team to win?
I mean, my favorite team obviously happens to be this time around Pakistan, and it's because of the fact, number one, that they're the number 1 one-day international team. The Asia Cup is particularly based on the one-day format. Number 3, it looks like as if that we have the most balanced team as of now, and our skipper is doing wonderfully well. You know, so he happens to be one of the finest batters in the world. Now, coming down to where we certainly need to speak about whether are we going to witness finest weathers this time around or not, you know, finest seasons for fruits, you know, for cultivation, for harvesting. That's something we certainly want to focus on today.
Right, and I think thank you so much for focusing on weather, because finest weather or the normal weather, as we like to categorize it, is something becoming very questionable, right? And especially last year with the climate change and the adverse effects of that, the glaring reality of the climate change has forced us to make some informed decisions, to make some informed responses to tackle the climate change in the first place, right? Because we have seen that entire Pakistan was affected, and especially Balochistan, because it is one of the largest provinces, and we've seen that how the monsoon season moved from Balochistan towards the north, which is an abnormality in the first place. But how to protect our land from such sort of calamities, because this is going to be a very normal phenomena in the coming days, and this is something that we need to tackle. So to have all of these answers, we are very glad that we have been joined by one of the very intellectual personalities who's going to roll out his vision and his responses to the threat of climate change.
And that's exactly the kind of people we certainly need at the helm of affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, he happens to be Deputy Executive Director SDPI. He is Dr. Shafkat Munir Sahab. Hello sir, Assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Walaikum salam, kaise hain ji? Theek hai.
Alhamdulillah sir, how's the weather at your side, at your end?
Inside weather is good, outside is also good. But you know, weather is linked to overall what you, Hajra, said, the climate change.
True.
So that's an area where we have to focus very seriously, because climate change is not the issue of a government. It's not the issue of international organization. It is the issue of us of all, whether we are in the north or south.
True.
And even in Pakistan, you talked about Balochistan. We always think that Balochistan falls in our south.
Yeah.
And whatever our north is doing with us as a south, we are repeating the same with our south in Sindh and Balochistan. We from the people from the north.
Exactly.
That's very important area.
Sir, thank you so much for establishing that, but it is really important because we go out in 47 different countries that it's not Pakistan who's actually contributing to climate change, number one. Number one, and number two, you know, we are the most vulnerable, unfortunately, you know, so our contribution might be somewhat around 0.005%, but the rest of the world certainly does not pay heed to that, you know, so we have seen when Trump took over, you know, there was massive industrialization, and they certainly didn't want to sign any protocols because of the fact that they realized that our economy is totally dependent on industrialization and whatnot. So while we say that, you know, that what our north is doing to our south, you know, we kind of keep on repeating that, that's agreed, but that too is on a very minimal level. When we are to talk about climate change and its impact and effect, you know, on different provinces, for example, let's talk about Balochistan. I just read a story which said that there was this gentleman who had you know, farms of apples and, you know, pomegranate. So imagine that just because the flood water stayed for their longer period of time, now it's just barren land, there's nothing else. So imagine that these kind of losses can't really be bared. What do you think is the condition and situation in Pakistan as of now because of our vulnerability? I'm very sorry for the long question towards climate change.
I think our vulnerability is established world over, and at the last COP, which happened in Sharm el-Sheikh last year, and now we are heading for another COP which will be organized in December in Dubai. So the process from Sharm el-Sheikh to Dubai is that we have to work at our last COP. Pakistan established with the G77 countries that we are most vulnerable, and due to climate change we had the devastating floods in 2022. We have established and we have pursued and our case for loss and damage to the world. But now here is who is going to pay for this loss and damage. You rightly said that we are not the polluters, so to speak, if you talk in terms of global greenhouse gases emissions. They are the West or the industrial countries, those who has been polluting the world.
True.
And we are at the receiving end. Now, in this debate of climate change, there is a negotiation process, and through that process, we know that there is a Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement talks about the responsibilities, preferential treatments, and many other things, and it calls upon the international countries who have developed a lot, and out of their development, we are facing the carbon emission of their emission, and we are facing the brunt of that. So they were supposed to give $100 billion a year for the climate adaptation, but they are not contributing. Now they, even in the last COP, they wanted that this period should be extended to 2025, and still they are on that.
True.
If they are not paying off their part, how can we adapt to it?
And this is something which I would want to kind of speak about. So imagine that, if we are to talk about that, what remuneration we were going to get in terms of, climate adaptation, imagine, let's just forget that for a second, because imagine that certainly means that we are keeping an eye on, that fund for, to come in, and then only we will certainly be talking about that, okay, Pakistan is becoming climate, or probably we're taking it seriously when it comes down to climate adaptation. Don't you think that it's about time that we realize it ourselves, that okay, whatever we do in our capacity is something?
No, that is only one thing. That is, I am talking about their responsibility, but our responsibility is huge. As a citizen, as a country, we have to do a lot. But that's why realizing it, Pakistan's outgoing government has done a fantastic job, and they have given us an adaptation, resilience and adaptation plan 2023, which is a comprehensive document that talks about the situation, that talks about strategies, ideas, mitigation processes, and many other things, not depending upon the international funding, but also from homegrown resources. But adapting to the situation or mitigating, there are two processes. Pakistan, in its NDCs, nationally determined contribution, which we submitted in 2001 at Glasgow, that talks about that we will, by 2030, we will be reducing our emission by 50%, and that too 15% from our sources and 35% from the international resources, which should ultimately come to the countries like Pakistan. Not only Pakistan, but the countries, those who fall into the categories of Pakistan. But that's are not coming. And that's why I think that, making that realize the 15% even from our resources, that is coming difficult. That's why now the National Resilience Adaptation Plan, that talks about something more than, the money coming from international resources. So that also should be reflected in all the provinces in Pakistan, so that people start adapting themselves from their own behaviors.
Right.
Climate change is not just a country's issue. It is not a global issue alone. It's a person's issue.
Humanity.
How we manage in our life the climate related things, or our own carbon emission.
Carbon footprint.
Yes. We have to take care of that.
That's very true, and thank you so much for pointing it out. But sir, we've talked about how the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on the Climate Change has mentioned that this region, South Asia, is going to witness a very prolonged season of monsoons and also the droughts in the first place, right? And since you're the expert on the DRR policy, so do you think that we are prepared enough to integrate all of these realities into our DRR policies? Because obviously government was ready for those responses, but the adversary in the form of the climate change was so huge that we were unable to respond to that in the first place, right? So what next?
In terms of the frameworks, the policy framework, we have developed a lot in Pakistan, talking about the DRR policy 2012, then adaptation of this DAI framework on DRR, and the new one, the National Resilience and Adaptation Policies. All these policies and frameworks are very much intact with us now, and even after 2005, the way Pakistan has developed its humanitarian architecture is quoted worldwide. That's a true thing, and we have handled 22 floods ourselves.
Right.
2010 was of course with the global community, and this time less global community and ourselves.
True.
These are the examples, but more needs to be done.
That's true.
In terms of resource mobilization, it's not that only resources will come from outside, but we can mobilize our private sector, we can mobilize various sectors of economy that can help in greening the overall economy and the green economy or green development, which
So
can
which
be,
sectors do you think that can contribute, to...
for example, in agriculture,
Right.
we can introduce the new technologies
True.
where we
And we
can
need that.
where we can conserve water, where we can have new seed varieties
Drip
which
systems.
are not water consuming crops, but there are other things, other techniques where we can produce more in less input.
And the world is doing
And-
that.
and-
The world is doing,
Yeah.
China is doing that.
Exactly.
I think Gavadir has also witnessed that climate smart agriculture or crops there where they are more acclimatized to the climate change there, and that's a very wonderful development, especially considering the fact that we are one of the most vulnerable country. But let's talk about, sir, you alluded to the loss and damage fund, right? And you mentioned that $100 billion were pledged to it, and the funding was to become in the form of the project-based resources. So, I mean, yes, there was a lot of talk in the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, and we are heading towards another conference. So, do you think it was just the talk, or are we walking the talk in the first place? What is the response overall?
Let me first clear that loss and damage fund is a new thing. 100 billion which I talked about is for the climate adaptation fund. So that's a separate thing. Loss and damage fund has been in principle agreed and set up in the last COP. But now the rules of procedure will have to be made.
Okay.
Who will contribute, what that has to be yet committed by the countries, that has not been done.
Okay.
But now we are not expecting more from the COP28 which is coming up now, because there are many other agenda items on the COP,
Okay.
particularly on stock taking, what has happened until now, what need to be done in future. And then there is a debate that the whole world is actually facing these kind of blunts, and many countries need these kind of support.
True.
So that is a good thing is that diplomatically we, Pakistan in the lead, have done at least this, the loss and fund
And it's a great
established.
Yeah.
But not yet, there is no money in it.
But which is why, this is one thing which I wanted to talk about. Now, imagine that, when we speak of countries who've contributed quite a lot towards climate change, making us and other countries like us more vulnerable, do you think that, such funds will be created by those countries, and then eventually they will still be contributing towards that climate change and creating these worse conditions for us every single year, and then we will be happy just because of the fact that we have had some loss and damage fund? This is not the way forward, or do you think that this is?
Because there's a lot of politics going
Yeah,
on.
that's my point. Actually, climate is not a political issue, it's a political issue too, in a sense.
Obviously.
Because when we are talking about the funds or providing money, that comes to politics. For putting up a war or giving bailout packages to their banks, they can spend billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
True.
But for food security, which require 50 billion only to make world hunger free, they are not contributing.
True.
To make climate resilient communities in the world, they are not paying for 100 billion per year or more. That's a peanut for them, but again the politics is there.
True.
So until we decide about it, there is a two thing, as you said, IPCC. One side is the scientific side of climate change.
True.
The other is policy. When it comes to policy, it comes to politics, because of course policy and politics have their correlation. But we should look at the scientific side of it, how climate change is going to impact the world, every citizen of the world. Not
And share
only
your insight on this as well, because we go out in different countries, 47 different countries, so please let them know.
Yeah. So you see, I would quote here one quote from the UN Secretary General.
Right.
He said when he launched the IPCC report, he said that, dear friends, the humanity is on the ice. The humanity is on the thin ice, and that ice is melting fast.
True.
And that is the true story of climate change, whether it's the other parts of the world, whether it's Pakistan. So we have to really realize, if you are the global leader, you have to play your global role. You have to globally admit your responsibilities and contribute. If you are a national level leader, you have to commit nationally that we have to build our nation a climate resilient nation. If you are a local level leader, it is your responsibility to make your locality climate resilient. And you cannot survive until you are climate resilient, and that has a price tag, that has a decision making, that has a mindset. You have to change your mindset
But
first,
And-
starting from your change in your behavior, and then you have to move on the financial side.
But sir, there's one thing which is very much important, and it is about that the problem of climate-induced migration. So we've seen recently that the river Sutlej was bloated a lot, and it has damaged a lot of crops there. And I was talking personally to a person, and he was devastated because he was a farmer there, and he says that I really don't want to do farming, and he wants to move to cities in search of more stable livelihood, right? And Pakistan being an agricultural country, this is because we are very vulnerable at the risk of that, right? Because we have been producing organic fruits and organic food all around. How can we protect the local communities from this, I would say, the menace of climate change in the first place? Because flooding, bloating of the rivers, it is causing a huge damage.
And what role do you think local governments are playing at the grassroots level?
That's a fundamental question.
Yes.
Whether there are local governments in place. I think we have a very weak local government system. Generally, for handling climate is only handled at local level.
Yes.
Period. No question.
That's true.
It's not a national level addressed. At national level, of course, at policy level, at financial level, you can support, but action to be taken at local level.
True.
True.
So, who will take the action? This should be the local leaders, the local communities, the local governments. Whereas if you look at the in country situation, local governments are there, but there is no resources with them. There is no technical expertise with them. So we have to decide that we have to move locally. All the action should be down, like the National Resilience and Adaptation Plan says. It is a local-led process. Until we strengthen it, we cannot really go about changing anything in terms of climate change.
Because I've hardly
local
seen
communities, you have to use the local wisdom.
True.
Ask the farmers what 30 years back their forefathers were doing. Why these techniques have gone now. Now with new technologies, with the old wisdom, we should have to somehow embed both of them. And then we have to move to train the communities. And we have to internalize it that climate change is not a foreign phenomena. It is from within, it is there, it is not going to go anywhere in near future. So we have to adapt to it, we have to mitigate in terms of that everyone, each of us should reduce our carbon footprint.
Right.
In terms of, if we are using clothing, we should reduce our buying, our production. We should need a sustainable consumption as well with the production. So these are the human behavior and mindset we have to change. As you asked that from where we should start from and then communities. Communities are the one, those who are at the vulnerability front, they are the one who can save themselves, and that's why put money and investment in terms of financial or human resources so that they can be cope with and they can be trained and prepared
so
for any disasters.
So rather than constructing the same hotels on the same place, on the same plot where they were earlier, unfortunately, which were destructed by the same floods, please make sure that you invest it somewhere else where you think that you and your family will be safer.
And also this brings us to another important point and addressing the elephant in the room, which is the capitalism. And I think we have discussed that a lot of times in our shows. The very unsustainable models of the productions that are going on, which are putting so much strain and pressure on the earth's resources that we see that nature is striking back in the form of the climate change in the first place. So do you think we can address this elephant in the gap with the, renewed lifestyles? Because we have been so much trained, or we were so much trained into our luxurious lifestyles. It's very difficult task changing it, right?
We have a framework there, SDG 12. SDG 12 talks about sustainable consumption and production.
True.
But we are not taking care of.
Right.
Look at, I always say when we produced a cotton cloth, how much water is consumed to make the cloth from cotton to cloth. So how much water we need. And these are the surplus things we are doing. We should reduce our consumption patterns, and that is why the production will reduce. Production of consumer, of course, production of technology that should be environment friendly. That is good to go, but it doesn't mean that we have luxurious style and we spend. Our spending things are also contributing to carbon.
Chaudhary ban jane na sada.
That's a problem. We are Chaudhary in policy making. We are Chaudharis in implementation. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Okay, and sir, one last question before we wrap up this segment. So, since the COP conference is coming again, what do you think Pakistan should focus on in terms of making sure that the attention that we grabbed last year in the Sharm el Sheikh conference remains on us and world works towards tackling this
I
problem?
think we are really in a challenging situation now. Last time we had a vibrant team, we had a vibrant government at that time in place, because now we have a caretaker government, and certainly the whole setup has changed. But I know many of the senior level officials at the Ministry of Climate Change, those who were last time, and they will be this year as well.
Right.
So hopefully I think they will be pushing the agenda we have been pushing for the last many years. That is loss and damage also. Pakistan can also push for the agenda for adaptation, which we have presented it. Pakistan will present the agenda of the countries who are vulnerable to climate change, and we will continue our policy framing and diplomatic efforts with the same forces we had been using over the last year.
And that certainly,
so that would be certainly would push. I'm not saying that with these efforts we would be in a position to get money into the loss and damage fund, but at least we should not let the momentum down.
Exactly.
Right,
So thank you so much, Dr. Shafqat Munir
Thank
sir,
you so
for
much.
being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you.
Thank you
And
so much.
with this interim setup, I'm really hopeful, because imagine that they certainly do not have any political gains, or they do not have any political promises to fulfill. So which really means that right person for the right job will be at the helm of affairs, and that's certainly something which will take us out from the crisis that unfortunately we've been through because of climate change. When we talk about awareness, when we want the global community to come together, but in the first place, it actually happens to be our responsibility to make sure that what we are doing to make sure that we stop this vulnerability of Pakistan towards climate change. We're heading out towards a short break. Once you guys will come back, सुहाने मौसम में सुहाना सा गाना सुनाएंगे आपको.
Welcome back, and obviously before going on to the break, Shehzad alluded to the fact that since weather has turned really nice, and so nice weather demands a lot of romanticism and lot of songs, and since South Asian culture is very celebratory in its nature, right? So we celebrate a lot of things, and that too with the singing. So we are going to do a segment on how singing can be a passion, and so a lot of young singers are emerging on the front, and with the advent of the YouTube, with the advent of the social media, they have a platform where they can voice out their expressions in the form of the song. So Shehzad, since you're also very passionate about songs and whatnot.
So imagine, I wanted to say over here that it does something to your brain and heart. And when it does something to your heart and brain, it kind of has a very positive impact. So imagine when I'm at the gym, I really need to listen to some music, it gives
Fast
me that
beats,
pump.
yeah.
When I'm coming towards work, there's some mellow music, not dramatic, but mellow music, which actually gives me this feeling of awakening. So music in different roles will certainly have a very different impact. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be kind of introducing a superstar over here who's in the making. He's doing a great job. For every competition he's participated, he's come out very successful, either second position, third or first. So without any further ado, we're going to introduce Mr. Abdul Rahman Nasir, goes by the name of AR Nasir. Assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
I'm Alhamdulillah very fine. Sir, how are you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you over here.
It's a matter of great pleasure for me to be with you today.
Wow, that's wonderful, yeah. And you're a smart, young, handsome,
Thank you very much.
Brilliant, amazing, good-looking gentleman. And it's wonderful to have you over here on our sets.
Sir, very much.
And we certainly want you to mesmerize our audiences in 46 or 47 different countries. Sir. Are you ready?
I'm absolutely ready.
So what are you going to sing for us? Then we will certainly talk, but what are you going to sing for us?
I'm going to sing a song which is किया है जो प्यार तो पड़ेगा निभाना.
वो तो फिर करता ही है.
And it is from the movie of 1968.
Yep.
And I want to bring back the old music of Pakistan, which was actually known worldwide for its melody.
Okay.
Nowadays it is also good, but previously it was very famous around the nation, around the complete subcontinent. Pakistan's music was one of the best music around the globe.
And this is something which I was just discussing, Hajar, yesterday with my cousin. So imagine that, earlier, because now there's a cultural shift and, there are newer things which are coming out, new sort of music, and people, what they see, that's the kind of music that they're producing. So back in those days, it was more family oriented.
True.
Back in those days, it was more romanticized.
Melodies,
yes, it was
yes.
sweet melody.
True.
You would love it, you could listen to it, you could hum it, whatnot.
Right. And you can feel with the lyrics too,
Yeah.
they were so deep
And
in
it
nature.
was more
yes.
family oriented
True,
as well,
true,
that,
true.
that whatever
Deep
kind
social messages in them, and,
Yeah.
and still they resonate with us after so many years,
So
after so many times.
Yeah, so imagine the lyrics itself says, किया है जो प्यार तो करेगा निभाना.
That's true,
रख
that's
दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो. आओ जी, please. Let's do it. Let's play the music, please.
किया है जो प्यार तो पड़ेगा निभाना, रख दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो, हाय हाय कबूल कर लो. किया है जो प्यार तो पड़ेगा निभाना, रख दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो, हाय हाय कबूल कर लो. देखो ये फजाएं, ये रुत, ये नजारे, छोटी सी ये वादी भी कितनी हंसी है. कैसे जाने दूं मैं तुझे ओ जाने वाले, मेरा दिल मेरे ही बस में नहीं है. आएगा ना लौट के समा ये सुहाना, रख दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो, हाय हाय कबूल कर लो. तुमको पता है तुम्हारे इस प्यार में खुद को मिटाया तो मैंने तुम्हें पाया. अपने ही साए से छुप के हमेशा मैंने तुम्हें नगमा वफा का सुनाया. तुम हुए दूर तो हंसेगा जमाना, रख दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो, हाय हाय कबूल कर लो. अभी तक मैंने तो अपने गमों से पर्दा वफा का उठाया भी नहीं है. सुन के जिसे तुम बहुत पछताओ, मैंने वो फसाना सुनाया भी नहीं है. कहाँ चले छोड़ के अधूरा फसाना, रख दिया कदमों में दिल नजराना, कबूल कर लो, हाय हाय कबूल कर लो.
क्या बात है यार, माहौल बना दिया भाई आपने. क्या बात है.
That was wonderful. So how did your journey started
Actually,
into
it
singing?
started when I was in one class. So I was actually a quite young lad, and I was not
You
knowing.
still are? Alhamdulillah. Even I feel young.
Thank you
Imagine.
very much. And that time I was not knowing that I have that much, potential to grow in the field of music.
Okay.
And I was having a music teacher. When he heard me, he said that you are having that particularly pitch which is required to join the industry.
Okay.
Wow.
And I was not knowing that whatsoever he's saying. Then he gave me a rag Bhairavi.
Right.
and then Rag Darbari and all those basic rags which
Right.
help us in grooming our voice
Yeah.
and going towards classical range.
So do you really know all of these rags?
Yeah, I
Yourself?
know. I have been doing riyaz, and because of that, I have been winning various all Pakistan
So
competitions.
can you share with us Rag Darbari, okay? Because it happens to be one of the most famous rags as
Yeah,
well.
no doubt
So
in
most
that.
of the any classical singer, the first thing I think
Okay.
they would learn would be Rag
Rag
Darbari.
Darbari.
So how do we do it? Because me and Haja, we would want to practice Rag
Yes,
Darbari. Okay,
actually,
so let's
yes.
do Rag Darbari.
It's the, the basic rag of music which propagates you towards all the songs.
Okay.
Okay.
So we will go towards the basic rag. It is we know that it is having 7 terms:
Obviously.
sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da,
Pa, da,
ni,
ni,
sa.
sa.
And then it's reverse: sa, re, ni, sa, da, ni, sa.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm gonna just
Please,
help
please,
you out
please,
in that.
please. बहुत आला.
सा रे गा मा पा दा नी सा नी धा पा मा गा रे सा रे गा मा पा दा नी सा नी धा पा मा गा रे सा
Wow, yaar, wow. Okay, Haja, it's your turn now. Come on, Haja, it's your turn.
I think I can't do that,
Come
so
on,
I
yaar.
don't want to
It's
ruin
so
it in the
simple.
first place. So you
Sa,
go
re,
ahead.
ga, ma, pa, da,
So,
ni, sa. Okay,
you,
come on.
You do ahead.
I think
I know.
I think this certainly suits AR Nasir to kind of do that because he's been through that training process, and this is something which I love about this amazing young being over here, very talented, but it's not just talent. I think it's a lot of hard work.
True,
So imagine that he went through
Practice,
that classical training sessions as well. He had a music teacher to come in
True.
to guide him as well. That's something wonderful.
yes.
But now there's one more question. That
Sir.
is that imagine that you're in a country.
Sir.
Obviously, art now is global. There's no boundary
No
to
doubt
it with YouTube and social
Yes.
media platforms. But in our country, I've seen a lot of singers. We do a lot of shows, alhamdulillah, all over the country and outside the country. So people now want to relate with newer music. So for example, they would always be Usama Kam Laudi or youngsters,
yeah.
and for all of these probably Ali Sethi, not just Ali
Yeah,
Sethi, I
yeah,
think so Faris Shafi. So most of the time, whenever you're thinking about writing a song, do you want to relate with the modern music, or would you always be like, okay, I want to bring back the older generation?
Actually, thing is that music itself has very diverse system. It is not a case that music is just a simple piece of cake that we can just sing it and that's over.
True.
That's not the case. Now, a new kind of genre are being introduced in music, and I just want that it's okay if you want to introduce these kind of new music which is being sung by that Talanjum and these youngsters, all that team. The old instruments which have become the basis of the new music system, they should not be banished.
Okay.
They should not be left apart. They
No,
must
but,
be
no,
brought.
but there's a reason. Since we are having a debate, and I love it that you at this age are so well aware of it, and I certainly agree to it. But now imagine that now we have invested so many millions of dollars in making sure that one single button press on a keyboard
Yes.
will actually give you the sound of sa from a harmonium.
Yes.
Why do you still want a harmonium to be there? Because
Yeah,
the sound
that
is same,
you're,
right?
You're absolutely right. But thing is that whenever they sing a song, they must be on the basis of rag.
Okay.
They must be in the scale.
So the foundation is right.
Foundation must be there. The
Right.
basis is there, and we have to act upon that.
So what is your goal now? So imagine that one of the most finest singers, one of the most iconic voice over here in Pakistan happens to be either Atif Aslam or either Rahat Fateh Ali Khan Sahab. Alhamdulillah, they're so successful all
yeah,
over
no
the
doubt
world
in
that
that.
wherever they go, they get millions of people, huge numbers
We
of
get
fans
a lot
and
of
whatnot.
love around the globe.
Yeah,
no
so
doubt.
what is your goal?
My goal is straightforward. That first of all, thing is that I am enough age to have my academics, and that all things is basic thing. Because nowadays, the young generation is also, just going towards music and not going towards their basic criteria, which is the, academics.
Yeah.
First, we must complete that system, then we must step
तो
into
यार
that.
अम्मी अबू वाली बात कर दी यार कि
नहीं
बेटा
सर,
पढ़ाई करो
बात
फिर
पता
बन
क्या-
जाना जो बनना
वो बात बिल्कुल ठीक है आपकी.
बन गए भाई हम सिंगर बन गए ना क्या मसला है अब क्यों पढ़े
बिल्कुल की बात सही है.
But I think what sort of support did you had in your family? I mean, were they encouraging towards you?
They always encouraged me. That's not
Okay.
the case. My mother, my father, they were always being standing with me whenever I am saying that I have to sing a song. I have to go to Lahore. I have to go to Karachi
Okay,
for
wonderful.
all Pakistan competition is there.
Right.
So they just bugged me up that you can do it, boy. Just go with a big heart and you will succeed.
And that's wonderful, and that's certainly something which is required. And you know, please stick to what your parents are saying. Education is really important. I started television when I didn't really complete my education, so I had to come back, complete it, and then go back. There's no second thought to it.
Yes.
Now coming back to what your goal was, you certainly are performing already all over the world.
Yes,
you know, probably inside Pakistan as well, and there's a lot of fan following that you're garnering, and that's exactly when the problem arises. So what happens is that, you know, a lot of people, especially girls, when they start to text AR Nasir, what AR Nasir does is that AR Nasir closes the books and he's like, okay, you know, let me give some time or share some time with my audiences and with my fans. So how do you kind of manage that?
Actually, management is in the case that I know that I have to interact with them and give time to them
And
as well.
obviously you're handsome, you're cute, you're
Thank you very
smart,
much.
you've got great voice, alhamdulillah,
Thank you
you
very
groomed very well.
Yeah.
So you have a bright future
Inshallah, I am looking forward to
in all senses, alhamdulillah.
Let's see that what's in my...
So why not we hear another song?
Exactly.
from you?
And before you do that, you know, so if there's anything you would want to share with our audiences, whether where can they follow you, please do that. We're going to wrap it up. And with your song, we will say Allah Hafiz to everybody out there as well.
Yeah,
So
I just want to say that this is a song, Tu Jo Nahi Hai To Kuch Bhi Nahi Hai, which was sung by our very, you know, legend singer S.B. John.
मेरे दिलों के तार आपने छेड़े, तू जो नहीं है तो कुछ भी
Yes.
नहीं है. And where can they follow you, your social media platform?
I'm on Instagram at AR Nasir Official, on Facebook as well, same name, and on YouTube AR Nasir Official. You can catch me on all these.
And
social
are we
media
going to
platforms.
witness any fresh music from you, or you will only be singing covers?
No, I will be there. I will be also, you know, uploading my own song. My
Yeah.
own,
Wonderful.
Music videos will be coming up.
Will be coming, and live sessions are also there on Instagram.
Wow.
So the
And
ones-
you know, so one day probably if you feel like we can do live sessions together, I'll rap and you
Inshallah,
can sing,
inshallah.
okay?
It would be a matter of grace for
Yeah,
me.
thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. For
Thank you
everybody
so
who's out
much.
there, ladies and gentlemen, we as a society, we as a nation need to promote our artists, and this is exactly what we do at PTV World. Thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you
us.
very much.
Towards the end, look after yourselves, enjoy this song. Good morning. Please go ahead, take it away, AR Nasir.
Thank you very much.
तू जो नहीं है तो कुछ भी नहीं है, ये माना कि मैं जवान है, हंसी है। तू जो नहीं है तो कुछ भी नहीं है, ये माना कि मैं जवान है, हंसी है। तू जो नहीं है तो कुछ भी नहीं है। निगाहों में तू है, ये दिल झूमता है, न जाने मोहब्बत की राहों में क्या है। निगाहों में तू है, ये दिल झूमता है, न जाने मोहब्बत की राहों में क्या है, की राहों में क्या है। जो तू हम सफर है तो कुछ गम नहीं है, ये माना कि मैं जवान है, हंसी